Hello everybody, Carlos Toro here from Fightful.com and FightfulBoxing.com here with the Fightful Boxing Podcast. We're doing things a little bit different this time around. We're probably going to be doing this for the next few weeks, or at least for the foreseeable future. Laptop's been giving me a lot of problems lately. That's why you haven't seen a whole ton of videos on the site, aside from any interviews that I've done recently, like the one I did not too long ago with Mayweather CEO Leonard Ellerbe, where he told me about the details of Gervonta Davis's next fight this summer at the Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore against Ricardo Nunez. You can go ahead and check that out on Fightful MMA and Boxing's YouTube channel. But for now, we're gonna do things a little bit different on the podcast. It's gonna be audio only. It's not gonna be video, so you're not gonna see this pretty mug for the next few weeks. Or, for the next few months, maybe, as I am currently preparing for a special move, or at least my permanent move into the United States. But, that's still to be decided, and I'm still working on things, but for the moment, my laptop's also been giving me a lot of problems, and the power outages here in Puerto Rico have not been kind to me whatsoever. So for now, it's going to be pre-recorded. If you guys got any questions, you can contact me on Twitter at CarlosToro360 before the show. It gives me a little bit more freedom to kind of not be pinned down to certain schedules, and make sure that I have power immediately for the hour, however long I'm doing the podcast. And just kind of makes things a little bit easier for me to have to do these podcasts pre-recorded, audio only. So I hope you guys really do enjoyed it. And honestly, I've been really wanting to talk about this past weekend in boxing, and because it's been very big. I guess none bigger in the United States than the right hand heard around the world from Deontay Wilder on May 18 when he took out Dominic Breazeale in the very first round of the WBC heavyweight title fight in Brooklyn, New York. I gotta admit, I wouldn't say I'm surprised that the fight ended that quickly. I thought this fight was gonna go a little bit longer. I thought that this fight was, this fight was gonna be really good. On paper, it looked like it could be a really good action-packed fight, similar to what we had with Luis Ortiz when he fought Deontay Wilder last year. But turns out the fight ended up being more like the rematch Wilder had against Bermane Stiverne back in 2017, which I still remember when I spoke with Sean Rossap, Fightful's managing editor, and we talked about it after that night in November 2017. He told me that was one of the scariest things he's ever seen in boxing in recent memory up to that point. And I agree, it was a very different kind of Wilder, a more vicious, and I don't want to say more cruel, but it was a more intense Deontay Wilder than we've seen in previous fights. And it's kind of hard to believe that this is a more intense Deontay Wilder, given that he's already a very intense guy to begin with. But overall, I wouldn't say that I was surprised by the end result, Deontay Wilder winning by first round knockout. I mean, if you listen, there really is nothing to glean from this fight, so all that we can talk about is what happened the controversial comments that he made, the immediate post-fight interview with Jim Gray, just everything. It's funny because everybody's talking about Deontay Wilder, and really the intriguing stories about this past week regarding Deontay Wilder has honestly almost nothing to do with the actual fight against Dominic Breazeale. I mean, sure, the right hand was cool and all, and it was a phenomenal KO. It's certainly going to be up there with knockout of the year. It's going to be on that list. Probably going to win knockout of the year on a lot of people's personal lists. There's still a lot of boxing to be. We're still in the first half of 2019, so we still have plenty of knockouts before we can crown this one from Deontay Wilder as the knockout of the year. But overall, I was really excited. It was a devastating knockout. I think it was really I think was very, very good from Wilder. The way he performed, the way he composed himself. I thought that the way he set up the right hand was just as beautiful, if not better, than the right hand itself. You gotta look at the fight, and Wilder was being aggressive, much like he was from the start against Bermane Stiverne in their rematch. Then, right before he landed the right hand, he threw kind of a soft left jab that really wasn't meant to have to, hurt Dominic Breazeale. What it did is it blinded Breazeale's eyesight, and that completely blindsided Dominic Breazeale, and the right hand just knocked him out. It was kind of a similar knockout to the one Naoya Inoue had against Juan Carlos Payano last year. It was a kind of a very similar aspect. It used the left hand to block Juan Carlos Payano's field of vision, and then out of nowhere he lands a lightning fast right hand and immediately knocks him out. So overall, I gotta admit, I was really, really excited seeing that, because you're a fan. You want to watch. When you're watching the sport, you kind of feel excited when you're watching these knockouts. You just can't help but feel awestruck when you see a guy like Deontay Wilder knock people out in the way that he has done. But that's neither here nor there. As I mentioned, the interesting parts of this whole weekend, and the whole week heading up to the fight, and the days after the fight, was, it was centered, most of the pre-fight build-up actually centered around a controversy regarding Deontay Wilder. Not something he did, but something that he said regarding the comments that he had about adding a body to his record. The whole, in boxing, this is the one sport where you can kill a man and get paid for it. I haven't really spoken much about it, either on here or on Fightful or on my own social media platforms. I really haven't thought about it or mentioned much about it, because I've been thinking about it for a long time now, because really this is not the first time Deontay Wilder has said this. And part of me understands that we live in an era where people will gravitate towards controversy. And maybe the Deontay Wilder comments about killing a man, getting paid for it, I know that's not really politically correct today, especially in an era where boxing is a bit of a crossroads. Sure, there are more resources now, more than ever in the history of the sport, to watch boxing from all over the world. I mean, for God's sakes, we're watching their, fans in the United States are having better access, watching boxing cards in the Philippines and in Japan and all over the UK, and vice versa. It's something we didn't really have much access to 10 years ago. Technology has progressed to the point where we are able to watch all of these events and watch all of these fights happen. And so sometimes those resources can be a bit of a hindrance, because the sport, for better or worse, is fractured. There's not, the sport isn't, mainstream popular, and we are living in a post-Floyd Mayweather era. We are living in almost in a post-Manny Pacquiao era. And even though Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin are real big stars in boxing, they're not necessarily, absolute megastars in the sport. When I mean megastars, I mean the point where, sure, they can be draws all over the world for boxing fans, but if you ask non-boxing fans, how often do many of them recognize Gennady Golovkin or Canelo Alvarez? If I were a betting man, I would bet you however many dollars I would have to my name at this moment, which I will not reveal, that if you go to someone who doesn't follow boxing, who almost never watches any fights whatsoever, to say, who do you recognize more, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, or Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin? Chances are they're going to say Mayweather and Pacquiao. So in boxing today, you need to do something a little more extra. You need to do something that really is unexpected, that will really catch everyone off guard. And I think with the comments that Deontay Wilder did, I think that's kind of more or less what he was trying to go for. If you ask me, I don't really think Deontay Wilder really wants to kill somebody in the ring. Nobody, as much as they want to say that, and they want to act all tough, they want to, front in front of, be in front of, all these other boxers, all these people, and say you're the toughest man in the room, you're not afraid of anything. Deontay Wilder, no, and really any sensible human being doesn't want that on their conscience. Being responsible for the death of someone? No, Deontay Wilder is a much smarter man. He's a much more sensible man than what we heard in those comments. People are kind of looking at Wilder sometimes, and maybe at this savage heavyweight who really can, kill people in the ring if he really wanted to. It's, in a way, it's kind of giving off that Tyson-esque type of aura. I'm not. By the way, for those of you who would misconstrue words, I'm not calling Deontay Wilder Mike Tyson or the next Mike Tyson. I'm not calling him that whatsoever. But the way some people perceive Deontay Wilder and the way that he performs in the ring, the way his style translates to a knockout virtually every fight, and some of the words that he has said, you really can't help but wonder, where does this all come from? Who was the last guy to kind of act like a killer in the ring in the heavyweight division? It's Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson was the biggest heavyweight star in the U.S. since Ali. He was the biggest boxing star in the U.S. since Ali. He was, before Mayweather, before Oscar De La Hoya, before Pacquiao, it was Tyson. He was a mega draw. He wasn't just a mega draw for boxing. He was a mega draw in sports. And I think Wilder was trying to kind of channel that. Because, listen, I've spoken to Deontay Wilder multiple times. In person, in press conferences, at the gym, in media calls. I've spoken to him a number of times. And I don't claim to know him personally. I don't claim to be his friend. I don't have, Wilder's number that I can just dial up immediately or whatever. We're nowhere near that level. But from my interactions with Deontay Wilder, I believe that Wilder is a very intelligent, very articulate human being who has a lot of things on his mind. He's constantly thinking about so many different facets of the sport of boxing, in and out of the ring. And he understands that we are in this era in the heavyweight division where there's a lot of great heavyweights out there. Aside from the top three, which is Tyson, Fury, and Anthony Joshua, you have other up-and-coming stars at heavyweight. You still got Luis Ortiz. You still got Dillian White. You got Alexander Usyk, who is moving up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. And a lot of people think he's potentially a guy to watch out within a year from now. And all these other, relatively solid competitors, these B-level stars, B-level guys, such as, a Michael Hunter or an Oscar Rivas or an Andy Ruiz Jr., that you're kind of wondering, it's a very weird era because there are so many great heavyweights, and so you kind of need to find a way to stand out. And in the United States, when boxing is at its best, for most of the era, most of the time, not always, for most of the era, but the top star, or at least one of the top stars, has always been a heavyweight. And for better or worse, the American crowd will always gravitate towards a heavyweight star more. And I don't know why Deontay Wilder isn't a bigger star than he already is right now. He has all the tools to be this generation's real American boxing superstar. And one thing that about Wilder is that he has all the tools. But for some reason, one reason or another, he isn't, a guy who's drawing millions and millions on a consistent basis whenever he fights on TV. So, when you're a guy like Deontay Wilder, what do you do? Because clearly it's not working for him. Deontay Wilder is a growing star. And I do think the fact that he drew a surprisingly decent pay-per-view buy rate against Tyson Fury last year, which was, 325,000? I think that bodes well and that's a good gauge for how good of a star Deontay Wilder is. He's not exactly a super-duper mega star, but he's kind of between star and superstar in American boxing right now. But for Wilder, maybe he felt like he needed to do a little bit more. Maybe he felt like he had to do something to really gravitate people's attention. And he said that, and he said those things. He said, this is the only sport where you can kill a man and get paid for it. And if the intention was to build up for the fight and get people talking about Deontay Wilder, it worked. It absolutely worked. Because now because now people are gravitating towards him. Wilder's on ESPN discussing those comments. A lot of people in the sport are talking about it. And I thought to myself, listen, Wilder is doing everything he can, and he's saying these controversial comments because it works. Obviously, you say something controversial, people are going to gravitate towards you. And if you're an athlete in a combat sport and you say something like that, it's, you're going to pique people's morbid curiosity. And the way that he took out Dominic Breazeale, boy, that was vicious. That was so impressive. That was so great. The way he took out Breazeale with that right hand, that really made a statement in the sport, not just in the heavyweight division, in the sport and in the United States, because now people are going to be paying that much more attention to Deontay Wilder and what's next for him. Now, speaking about what is next for him, I've got to admit, I was a little bit surprised that we had actually a pretty calm Deontay Wilder when he had the interview against Jim Gray in the ring after he knocked out Dominic Breazeale. Obviously, everyone wants to see the Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua fight. That is the fight to make in the heavyweight division. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, that's the second biggest heavyweight fight you can make at this moment. And after that, it's Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury, but that's really more for the British fans. That's a British super fight. In the United States, not so much. Not as much as one would think, because Joshua hasn't fought in the United States. I mean, he will in less than a couple of weeks, but he hasn't fought in the United States yet. Tyson Fury, it hasn't fought on linear television in the United States in quite some time. You remember, his last fight was on pay-per-view, and before that, his fights were in the UK, and they were not fights that were readily and easily available in the United States. And his next fight against Tom Schwartz, let's be honest, isn't really going to drive that many people into going to ESPN Plus and making a subscription and tuning in. I think some people will tune in just because it's Tyson Fury, but and he's such a charismatic guy. But I think with Tyson Fury, you're kind of playing a dangerous game because you're getting all these, soft touches, and you're not facing Deontay Wilder, you're not facing Anthony Joshua. You're not really doing much with your career inside the ring. And I get he wants to build his profile in the U.S. even more by fighting more in the United States and fighting on ESPN. But you're not gonna wow the crowd by beating Tom Schwartz in Las Vegas. That's really not gonna do it for anybody, really. everybody's excited to watch Deontay Wilder vs. Tyson Fury 2. And I'm surprised that Wilder didn't actively go out and be aggressive in the interview and say, hey Joshua, hey Fury, I'm here, I just finished my dude, you guys better get on and finish your dudes quickly so we can fight already. Let's do it right here 2019. People don't want to see, people don't want to hear that, good things come to those who wait, or it's gonna happen, it will happen in the future. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that all good things come to those who wait. We've waited for a couple of years already, and we got Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury. You guys already made that fight happen last year, and now we want more of it, and we're not willing to wait a couple of years for it. We may have waited a long time for Mayweather versus Pacquiao, but that's not the smart model to use when you're trying to be in boxing's good graces and keep the sport thriving. It's not good if you constantly hold out on the biggest fights for years and years to come. But listen, I just don't think that Wilder didn't do a great job of trying to sell the fans that of getting the fight next. And I understand Wilder knows he's not going to get Anthony Joshua next or Tyson Fury next. He's not going to get them until 2020 at the earliest. That's what I think. But it's a very weird interview between Wilder and Jim Gray. And everybody's talking about the whole Jim Gray thing, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, it's a very controversial interview, kind of in the sense that not a lot of people are big fans of Jim Gray. And for those who don't know, who didn't watch the interview, so what happened was Jim Gray was interviewing Deontay Wilder, and the way he was phrasing the question about what's next for Deontay Wilder, he was essentially saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, but no one wants to see Wilder face Dominic Breazeale. Nobody wants to see Joshua face Anthony Ruiz Jr. Nobody wants to see Tyson Fury go up against Tom Schwartz. And to that point, he's right. There's nothing controversial about that. But what was really strange was that he said nobody wants to see Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Breazeale right when Dominic Breazeale was 5 feet next to him, still recovering from the knockout. And then Jim Gray had the cojones to go out and try to get an interview with Dominic Breazeale. You're not, no, Jim Gray, no, that's not how you kind of approach things. Like, if you go and say, hey, nobody wants to see you in the ring right now, you really expect them to go out to answer back and be polite for you, especially after they just lost the biggest fight of their lives in such a devastating fashion, being knocked out in the first round? No. And look, I'm not a anti-Jim Gray. I'm not pro-Jim Gray. I'm not, anything Jim Gray. I've covered a lot of fights in the United States that Jim Gray also worked, but I've never had a conversation with him. I've never even said hello to the man. But let's be honest, this is not the first time Jim Gray has done something like this. He's done stuff like this for decades now. The most famous one was the Pete Rose interview from, I forgot what World Series it was. Like, what was it, like 95, 96 or something? It was a World Series game, I believe. And Jim Gray interviewed Pete Rose. And Pete Rose was, and I think he still is, banned from baseball. And then instead of talking about the interview, talking about the interview about Pete Rose being a part of the all-century MLB team, that was the 99. Now I remember, it was 1999. I do recommend going up because it was a very, for those who kind of get the full scope of what I'm talking about, it's a very weird interview. So Jim Gray goes out and and pretty much attacks Pete Rose throughout the interview, just trying to pressure him into admitting that he cheated, not cheated, but that he bet on baseball games when he was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. And Pete Rose was just flabbergasted. And he's like, he wasn't expecting all those questions, the entire interview, to be about that, when really the whole thing was about Pete Rose. When it was about Pete Rose being a part of the 1999 All-Century team and actually being on an MLB baseball field, which to some was unthinkable at the time, given that he was essentially banned for all of baseball. But it was very weird. Jim Gray has this habit of, being in people's faces and not giving a damn about the people he's interviewing or the people that are the subject of an interview. He has shown repeatedly he doesn't give a damn about other people's feelings. And listen, I get it. Jim Gray is not there to make friends. He's not there to, make small talk with Deontay Wilder or with Dominic Breazeale. But, I kind of thought that Jim Gray's phrasing could have been better. Or, but overall, I thought his phrasing could have been better. But I don't disagree with the point he's made. I want to make that distinction very clear. The point that he was making about people not wanting to see Deontay Wilder against Dominic Breazeale and Anthony Joshua and yada 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 yada. I think the point that he was making, he is right. He is 100% right. Because we all want to see Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. We all want to see Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder. Those are the fights that we all want to see. But if Jim Gray thought that saying nobody wants to see Dominic Breazeale, and then seconds later go out and go to Dominic Breazeale and try to ask for an interview, and he rejects you, do you really think he's going to do that? And let's say he did. Let's say Dominic Breazeale did take the interview. Does Jim Gray really think he's gonna get, a mentally sound Dominic Breazeale after you insulted him? After he got knocked out the way he did? No. I mean, probably could have made for an all-time great soundbite of Dominic Breazeale chewing him out. But look, I had no interest in hearing Dominic Breazeale's thoughts. Because I'm not a fan of fighters being interviewed right after they get knocked out. Immediately after they get knocked out. I'm not a fan of that at all. Because you don't know what's going on in their mind. And you don't know if they're mentally well enough and physically well enough to even answer a question. So, if I were interviewing a guy, I want them to be, 100% with what they are about to say. I want them to understand that I'm interviewing them and that they're cognizant enough of what they're going to say, of what they're thinking about saying, and that they're processing my questions properly. And look, and you're not going to get that interviewing a guy that just got knocked out not too long, minutes ago. You're not going to get that. No. So no. I don't think Jim Gray, I'm not saying Jim Gray did a bad job. I'm not saying he did a good job. He just did his job as, what he thought was to the best of his abilities. And Jim Gray is a guy that, let's be honest, doesn't give a damn about the feelings of other people. Doesn't do it. He's a guy that will tell it to you straight. And some people appreciate that. And there was a part of me that really did appreciate Jim Gray asking the question in the way that he did. Because he didn't, he didn't tippy-toe around the question. He didn't, play nice with the wording. No. Listen, what Jim Gray said in his question to Deontay Wilder was exactly right. Nobody wants to see that. And so, my final thing on this whole matter is that I don't disagree with Jim Gray's point. Not at all. I agree wholeheartedly with his point. I just thought that he didn't have the best phrasing. That's all. I just don't think he had the best phrasing that he could have had. And maybe he knew exactly what he was saying. Maybe he didn't realize it at the time. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But but his larger point stands, and I do agree with him. Oh boy, so that's man. We just spent 30 minutes talking about Deontay Wilder and the state of the heavyweight division. This shows how much the heavyweight division matters today. We didn't really get that much when the Klitschko's were ruling the division. And listen, I love the Klitschko's and everything, but let's be honest, the heavyweight division was not super exciting when Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko were the champions. They just weren't. And the fact that they were never considering even, the thought of fighting each other, that just essentially killed the sport, because for several years we all thought the two Klitschko brothers were the best heavyweights out there in the world, but they wouldn't fight each other, so why should we care about the division itself? That's just the way it be. But you know what? One thing that I was really, really excited, more than the Deontay Wilder knockout from this past weekend, and that was the other big knockout. Naoya Inoue knocking out Emmanuel Rodriguez in the World Boxing Super Series earlier that in the day on May 18. He knocked out Manny Rodriguez in less than 5 minutes to win the IBF Bantamweight title and advance to World Boxing Super Series Bantamweight Tournament finals against Nonito Donaire for the unified WBA, IBF, and Ring Magazine Bantamweight titles. We don't know what the date or the location of that fight's going to be. I'm excited for that fight, by the way. I'm really, really excited. And Naoya Inoue, I feel like he's finally getting the credit that he deserves out there in the United States, because, let's be honest, aside from the one fight that he had in the US on HBO a couple of years ago, no one's really seen much of Naoya Inoue outside of YouTube highlights, or if you really had to actively work towards finding a Naoya Inoue fight live, because the last couple of fights took place in the United States, in Japan. And man, I just thought Naoya Inoue performed admirably once again. He took out Manny Rodriguez in less than 5 minutes. Think about that. He's been in this tournament for what, a little more than 2 complete rounds? That's amazing. Like, he took down Juan Carlos Payano in the quarterfinals. He took down Manny Rodriguez in the semifinals like it was nothing. He made them look like complete novices. Like, that first round between Manny and Naoya. So Manny, he landed some decent shots, but, honestly, I thought there was nothing Manny did that really even, made Naoya uncomfortable. And Naoya, holy smokes, blasting him with vicious power shots, and I think what was a left hook upstairs that initially dropped Manny Rodriguez early in the second round. And he just, Manny got up. He's one tough customer, I tell you, but Naoya Inoue is at a complete different level. And honestly, I don't want to say that this tournament's over, even though I kind of have been saying for months that I think Naoya Inoue would beat the entire tournament field inside 3 rounds in each fight, and he has done exactly as I thought he would in this tournament, knock people out inside 3 rounds or less. But he is going up against a guy like Nonito Donaire, who is, I don't know if he's a tougher opponent for Naoya Inoue than Manny Rodriguez, but Nonito is certainly the most noteworthy name on Inoue's resume, and Nonito Donaire is enjoying a strange career resurgence. Really, really strange. Everyone thought that his career was essentially done after he lost to Carl Frampton last year. Then he surprised everybody by dropping not from featherweight to super bantamweight, from featherweight all the way to bantamweight to enter this tournament. He beats Ryan Burnett, and I say the term beat very loosely because Burnett injured himself during the fight and clearly was not able to continue fighting. And then Nonito Donaire was supposed to fight Solani Tete, and he got injured. So he was replaced by Stefan Young, and Nonito Donaire easily knocked him out. So it's very weird. It's a very weird period for Nonito Donaire's career. But I think the momentum that he has had, that he has enjoyed in recent months, has been nothing short of spectacular and really, really good for the sport of boxing. Because Nonito Donaire is, he's such a class act. He's such a great guy overall. And, if there were more Nonito Donaires in the sport of boxing, I think the sport would be in a much better place. But the problem here is that Nonito Donaire is definitely past his prime. And even though he's performing very well at bantamweight throughout this tournament, Naoya Inoue is just on a completely different level. And we've seen this time and time again. And everybody is finally starting to see Naoya as the monster that the nickname makes him out to be. He really is a monster in the division. I have him currently my number 2 pound-for-pound guy, on my personal top 10, right behind Vasily Lomachenko. And I do think that, and I'm not saying that Lomachenko is definitively better than Naoya Inoue. I think it's more of a case of 1A, 1B type of situation, but I said this in the past. If Naoya Inoue wins this tournament in the manner that I think he can, and I expect him to, then I would have absolutely zero problem with him being the undisputed number 1 guy on my pound-for-pound list. Because what he's been doing is nothing short of absolute insanity. Like, look at the power this guy possesses in both hands. That much power in a 118-pound guy. That's not supposed to happen. That's not, you're not supposed to carry that much power. And I think this tournament has done wonders for Naoya Inoue. It's doing wonders for him in the same manner it has done wonders for Callum Smith and for Alexander Usyk, who won the 2 tournaments from the last season. And I think winning this tournament, I think he will be the new number 1 guy on many people's pound-for-pound list, if they aren't already. And hopefully, I really, really, really hope that the plan is to get Naoya Inoue and have him face a guy like Luis Neri. I want to see that fight because there's a lot of interesting storylines around it, because you have Luis Neri kind of being on this comeback road to the world title after disgracing the belt and disgracing the sport of boxing for being massively overweight against Shinsuke Yamanaka in the rematch, and then failing a drug test during the first fight against Shinsuke Yamanaka in 2017. And so he was given kind of an indefinite ban from boxing professionally in Japan. So you kind of touch upon the sensitive area about Neri and Japanese boxing. And then you have Naoya Inoue, who is essentially, I don't know if he's the biggest star in Japan right now. He's certainly one of them. He's like right up there. You know what? Inoue might be the biggest Japanese star right now after Ryota Murata lost his title last year. So, Inoue might be the biggest star right now in Japan. If not, he's certainly number 2 in Japan right now. So, Neri versus Inoue in the U.S. would certainly be, absolute fireworks, because I think a lot of people understand that Neri is by far the best bantamweight in the world today that's not in the World Boxing Super Series. And, I know Neri is with PBC, and Naoya Inoue is in talks of potentially joining Top Rank after the tournament is over if Naoya Inoue wins, and I expect him to beat Nonito Donaire in the finals. So, And and PBC and Top Rank are not exactly on the same page when it comes to making big fights. So if Inoue does go to Top Rank, I don't think I don't think his days at bantamweight are gonna remain there for years. I think he's going to move up in weight if he joins the Top Rank. I think he's gonna go to super bantamweight to try to win a title in a 4th weight class, and then maybe fight for a 5th division title at featherweight, because there was an interesting article from, I believe, Nikkan Sports in Japan that kind of quoted Naoya Inoue saying, number one, he would love to see the Luis Neri fight. He would love to see that. And number two, that he wants to go all the way up to featherweight and become, at the end of it all, wants to become a 5-division world champion, which only a select few has done it. Guys from Manny Pacquiao, Amanda Serrano, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Thomas Hearns, Oscar De La Hoya, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a really elite class. I think if Inoue ends up doing that and being and is as dominant as he has been throughout his career, I think you can make a very strong consideration of Inoue being the greatest Japanese boxer of all time, and him being arguably one of the greatest smaller weight fighters of all time. That's how good Naoya Inoue is. And because of the fact that Naoya Inoue has performed so well, has been so dominant, hasn't broken a damn sweat in this entire tournament, that's something that's special. You don't see that ever in boxing. And we need that. I know some people were saying, like, oh man, he's doing all well and good, but he hasn't faced anyone. Stop it. I don't want to hear any comments of Naoya Inoue hasn't faced anyone, because he's faced so many top names in the divisions that he's faced. I know some people would say, oh well, he didn't face the Sorumvisais, the Estradas, the Chocolatitos of the world when he was at 115 pounds. Those fights weren't possible at the time for him. Inoue outright said, I wanted those fights. I wasn't going to get those fights, so why am I going to stick around? And I'm just going to move up in weight, because I do want to win titles and multiple weight classes. And he's done so admirably. He's won titles at 108 pounds, 115 pounds, and now 118 pounds. Do I think that Inoue can do well at super bantamweight? I think that's weird. That's an interesting question, because when you're now going to super bantamweight, now you're kind of looking at taller guys with a noticeable size advantage. Guys like Emmanuel Navarrete, who is a very tall 122-pound boxer, and you got guys like Ray Vargas, who's an even taller 122-pound boxer. You got Danny Roman, who is, my opinion, the best super bantamweight in the world. I think that'd be a hell of a fight when you get two extraordinary body punchers. So I don't know I don't know how Inoue would. I don't think Inoue would have as easy a time taking those guys out as he has been at 118 pounds, at 115 pounds. I don't think he would have that easy of a job. And talking about featherweight, I don't know. I don't know how he would fare at featherweight, because as great as any boxer can be, there will be a cutoff point, and there will be a point where you're going to be taking on challenges too big. Not because you're not as good as those bigger fighters, but simply because the physical disadvantages that you bring to the table cannot be overcome by boxing ability. It just doesn't happen all the time. We saw it with Mikey Garcia when he faced Errol Spence Jr. Didn't work out. We saw it with Amir Khan when he faced Canelo Alvarez. Didn't work out. Kell Brook when he faced Gennady Golovkin. Didn't work out. Now, there are a few select cases where fighters move up multiple weight classes and still perform and still win world titles, but there are just as many cases, if not more, of fighters daring to be great and moving up and not jumping a weight class, jumping 2 weight classes and failing when go up against the best fighters in those higher weight classes. But the one thing I give Inoue is, Naoya Inoue is only 26 years old. I don't think people realize that. Inoue is only 26 years old. He turned 26 years old 6 weeks ago. Which is amazing. So he's right now entering his physical prime. Like, it's kind of hard to believe, but physically, Inoue can get even better. That's the scary part. And I think the fight against Nonito Donaire is certainly a very good fight for him for a number of reasons. Not just because of the intrigue and seeing how Donaire goes up against the young lion, trying to prove that he's the best in the division in the world today, but also because Nonito Donaire is big for 118 pounds. I think Nonito Donaire is an excellent opponent for Inoue, not just to gauge how good he is at 118 pounds, but how he performs against bigger guys at 122 pounds and maybe 126 pounds. If anything, Donaire is perfect to gauge how well he will perform at 122 pounds. Because Donaire wasn't exactly the biggest guy in the world at 126 pounds, but 122, very, very good litmus test for Nonito Donaire. Naoya Inoue. If you want my personal prediction for that fight, I think Naoya Inoue wins easily. I'd say 4th round KO. Yeah, I'm actually surprised myself at saying 4th round KO, because I thought for months that Naoya Inoue would easily wipe out this field with no problem in 3 rounds or less. But there is something to be said about the momentum that Nonito Donaire is carrying, because that gives a fighter so much confidence that, I think that confidence is going to elevate Nonito Donaire even more. So, we'll see what happens. I'm really excited for that fight. I really am. I'm super stoked for Nonito Donaire versus Naoya Inoue, because I think by then we'll definitely find out if Naoya Inoue is the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world. And if you ask most people, and if you ask, and me, I kind of think he's already in the conversation, if not already the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world. Right now, there's not a lot much to discuss, but except in the weekend preview of this fight, because we have so many boxing cards on Saturday and one on Sunday that I think is really, really interesting. There's the ESPN card from Kissimmee, Florida. That's going to be headlined by Masayuki Ito versus Jamel Herring for the W Super Featherweight title. I like that fight. I think it's going to be a very good action-packed fight. I think Ito has performed very well against Christopher Diaz when he won the title last year, and then he performed tremendously when he fought Evgeny Chuprakov in Japan late last year. And I thought the way he performed against Chuprakov was excellent. He dominated. He, didn't really leave him any room to operate with really much anything. He stopped him inside 7 rounds. So I think that kind of performance is gonna elevate Ito a little more. And I think Herring is a solid opponent for Ito's first U.S. title defense. But I'm sorry, I don't think Herring's going to win. I think it's going to be a nice competitive fight. I would be mildly surprised if Jamel Herring wins this fight. I say Masayuki Ito wins this by close decision. I'd say, just to put out a score, 117, 111, 116, 112. That's my prediction. Biloxi, Mississippi on Fox Sports 1. Austin Trout versus Toro Gaucher. This is a weird fight. It's a very, very weird fight at under 54 pounds. Because Austin Trout is coming off the loss to Jermell Charlo. And he hasn't looked stupendously well in the last couple of years. He is a quality opponent for anybody at 154 pounds, but I don't know if he's a guy that's good enough to be a world champion at this point of his career anymore. And then you have Toro Gaucher, who, I still, unfortunately, remember him from the absolutely dreadful fight that he had against Erislandy Lara in 2017. And I do mean dreadful fight. That was just to sort of kind of magnify how boring that fight was. I was at the Barclays Center when that fight happened. There were around 10,000 people when the bell sounded to start the fight between Lara and Gaucher. And by the time we got to the 6th round, almost half of the crowd left home. Everyone was actively booing that fight. Gaucher performed horribly. I don't think he won a single round. I thought maybe he won the final round, because Lara kind of took the foot off the gas pedal, if I remember correctly. But overall, I was not excited about Toro Gaucher fights from that point forward. And I don't know how he's going to do. I really don't know. I think Austin Trout wins this because I do think he's still a quality opponent at 154 pounds for the best fighters out there. I just don't see Toro Gaucher performing that well. Maybe I'm still stuck on that 2017 fight against Lara, but that was his last fight against a top opponent. If you're going to perform like that, I just don't think that you're going to beat Austin Trout. I say Trout stops him late. Also, on the Zone on May 25th, Devin Haney versus Antonio Moran. Overall, I'm not super excited about that card. Not because Devin Haney's not an exciting fighter. I think he's a really good, fun prospect to watch at 135 pounds. But, this was supposed to be Alexander Usyk's heavyweight debut. That's really what this whole card was going to be. But with Alexander Usyk suffering the bicep injury and being out of the fight against Carlos Takam, there's really not a whole lot to be excited about. Michael Hunter's going against Fabio Maldonado, which really is not a good fight at all. Hunter's going to obliterate him easily. Filip Hrgović is going to face Gregory Corbin, the guy that, provided the worst televised boxing fight of the year when he faced Charles Martin in March. No, thank you. I don't want to see. Those fights are bad. Those fights are terrible, to be honest with you. I don't like the... And I think Devin Haney is going to obliterate Antonio Moran. I think Moran's decent gatekeeper at 135 pounds, because he gave Jose Pedraza some trouble last year, but this is Devin Haney's fight to win. The rest of the card doesn't excite me at all. The one fight that I am excited about is the Jessica McCaskill versus Ana Esther Sanchez on the undercard for the unified WBA and WBC women's junior welterweight titles. I'm really excited for that fight. I think that's going to be a really good fight. McCaskill has done really, really well since losing to Katie Taylor, and she won the title very impressively last October in Chicago, and she's going to be facing a gal in Ana Sanchez who, by the way, I don't think a lot of people talk about Ana Sanchez's career, but she's a 3 division, or she's held the world title, or it is a full world title in 3 weight classes, and then held the interim title in a 4th weight class. She has an outstanding resume of titles. Now, do I think Ana Esther Sanchez beats McCaskill? No. I think McCaskill is entering, a great time in her career. I think she's going to dominate very well against Ana Esther Sanchez. I think McCaskill wins a lopsided decision. And I think McCaskill enters the conversation of top 10 women's pound-for-pound boxing. And let's see, what else is out there? There's the May 26th card in China, which I'm most excited for. That's the card I'm actually most excited about this whole weekend. So it's Kan Shu against Shun Kubo for the WBA regular featherweight title, and Carlos Canizales against Sho Kimura for the WBA regular light flyweight world title. I think both of those fights are excellent. I think those are, super fun fights that, unfortunately, there's no real easy access to get in the United States. There just isn't. It's one of those, things that really sucks about, boxing in Asia, that you have these outstanding cards, and you're not going to and people in the West don't have an easy way to watch them. But for those who do find the actor or are interested and want to know more about those fighters, so Kanshu defeated Jesus Rojas in January to win the title. A really, really exciting fight, really action-packed fight, and Kanshu did really, really well against Jesus Rojas. I didn't realize just how much of an exciting fighter and puncher that he is, and he's certainly a guy that should be, in consideration of being maybe in the top 5 of best featherweight fighters in the world. Now, Shun Kubo is a former super bantamweight champion. He lost his title to Daniel Roman, and then he came back and is fighting at featherweight, and he fought Hiroshige Osawa. And he didn't, he looked good, but he is a name. And that's what you really want out of Kanshu, is to really fight names out there. Guys who's held world titles, who you can make a strong case for being legitimate opponents to Kanshu. And I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I think Kanshu's style is one that forces fighters to have to retaliate and fight back in order to stand a chance of winning the fight. And I think we're gonna see a lot of a lot of back and forth, a lot of trading punches. I think Kanshu wins this fight. I think he stops Shun Kubo late. And the other fight, Carlos Canizales versus Sho Kimura, I'm really excited about this fight. I actually might be more excited about this fight than the main event. I think the Kanshu fight is the main event. I could be wrong, but I think Kanshu is the main event. But regardless, the interesting part of this fight is that Sho Kimura is a former flyweight world champion, and he's dropping down in weight from 112 to 108 pounds for this fight, and he was fighting at 112 pounds as recent as I think March it was. And I think Sho Kimura, if he's able to make weight and look good up against Carlos Canizales, you have the makings of a terrific fight right there, because Sho Kimura is a devastating body puncher, and if the power is still there at 108 pounds, he is as deadly a light flyweight as he was at flyweight. And he gave Kosei Tanaka a real hard challenge, and he gave us the best fight of 2018 when he fought Kosei Tanaka in Japan last September. And Canizales is a really fun, come forward type of fighter. And I do think that the excitement level and the entertainment level of this fight hinges on Sho Kimura successfully making weight and not being too drained heading into this fight. Because my one worry is that Sho Kimura is a guy, he's not super, super big, but he wasn't a small flyweight when he was the world champion. And now he has to drop the weight. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced Sho Kimura is going to be 100%. If he is, all the better. And so if Sho Kimura can make weight and not suffer any real ill effects from that, I think he beats Carlos Canizales by unanimous decision, and what I think will be the best fight of the weekend. So that about wraps it up for this edition of the Fightful Boxing Podcast. It's a little weird having to do this pre-recorded when my laptop's not performing up to snuff, and when I have to resort to doing this off camera, pre-recording, not live at all. But hopefully I can still give you guys lots of podcasts in the coming months, as I'm kind of fixing all my technology issues. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun talking boxing for an hour straight. And I really did enjoy talking, sharing my thoughts about the Deontay Wilder situation, the heavyweights division at this moment, the weekend that we got in boxing, the, Naoya Inoue, is he the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world? I loved, it was fun discussing all of that. So that about wraps it up for this edition of the Fightful Boxing Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our new Fightful MMA and Boxing YouTube channel. Thumbs up this video. If you have any questions that you want me to discuss on a future podcast or any topics you want me to discuss, hit me up on Twitter at Carlos Toro 360. That's Carlos, C-A-R-L-O-S, Toro, T-O-R-O 360. Go to Fightful.com for all the latest news regarding pro wrestling, MMA, and boxing. Go to FightfulBoxing.com for tons of news, podcasts, videos, interviews, exclusive interviews, and I do have several interview articles and a couple of good interviews coming up in the next week or so, so be on the lookout for that. Until next time, Carlos Toro at Fightful.com and FightfulBoxing.com, signing out.